Welcome to Real Geek Media. It is May 9th, 2024, Thursday night. I am Hayden Stoll. I'm here with Christopher Michael Brake. This is Real Geek Media. We're here to talk about news, interesting stories, movie reviews, entertainment industry. Christopher, how's it going?
May the 4th be with you. We missed it.
We did miss it. Did you celebrate it?
Only with the Schwartz.
It all counts. It all counts.
And as you know, Hayden, my Schwartz is bigger than yours.
That was low-hanging fruit right there.
It's all low-hanging, believe me. It's all, at this age, it's all low-hanging.
Nice.
No, so I'm watching I just finished the TV show Shogun, all 10 episodes.
I've seen nothing but praise for this series. I've not seen an episode yet, but everywhere I look and I see Shogun, I see a positive accounting, a positive review. Tell me about it.
So it's just as underhanded. There's a lot of intricacies in there, just like Game of Thrones. A lot of backstabbing. A lot of the Japanese culture in terms of the barbarians and the savages, and we're the civilized people. And, it really draws a comparison of what's wrong with our society today, where there's no respect for anybody. You go to Japan nowadays, there's no trash anywhere on the road or in the streets. There's no trash cans. People pick up the trash and they take it home to throw it out. It's small stuff like that, that whole broken windows theory. I'm going to go back to the criminal justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whole broken windows society theory that if everything looks nice, everything's taken care of, people are invested into that community. And, don't get me wrong, you got some brutal stuff going on in here. Seppuku, beheadings.
Mm-hmm.
They boil a guy alive at one point. So,
wow. Yeah.
Oh, it's some brutal stuff in there, and it's great. It's the guy who plays the main character, John Blackthorne, is amazing. Mariko, she's great as well, and I'm not gonna give anything away, but definitely check it out. It's well worth your time. It's still for free on AMC, so if you have the on demand, you still get it for free before it hits Hulu. We have to pay for it. So.
Now, I remember when I was just a boy, my father was highly into Shogun, and they had a miniseries back then.
Richard Chamberlain?
Yes, Richard Chamberlain. And I remember he had the book, and he would read the book, and it was cool because I was like, wow, that's a big book. What is that? It's Shogun, and it looks very interesting. But it's I never watched the series. I was too young. Wasn't a cartoon. I wasn't into it. So it's interesting that here we have another adaptation, but the way everything has evolved to 2024, where you can show things like you said, seppuku, beheadings, a guy getting boiled alive, where they have like the effects and the ability to do these things and the budget to do these things to make them look brutal on screen. But it's something that I definitely need to check out. I got to make some time and catch up on it.
There's even nudity in there, so I gave it a star just for that. And some cursing too. So, and it's very well done. I can't speak highly enough about it. I think I even posted about it on Facebook how much I enjoyed it.
Nice.
So
very cool.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that Shogun was a book, because tonight we're reviewing another book, or another movie that was based on a book, Fight Club.
Do not talk about Fight Club, except for here.
That's rule number 1. But remember what rule number 2 was?
You do not talk about Fight Club. See rule number 1.
Most iconic line in the movie, right?
Yes. The absolute most iconic line in the movie. And maybe the other one being, I want you to hit me as hard as you can, which was all over the trailers when this movie was being promoted.
Do you know where he hit him? Do you remember where he hit him?
Right in his ear.
That's right. He hit him in real life in his ear.
Right in his ear.
And Norton did hit him right in the ear.
What was great, that scene was just like, you just hear like the... and he just does it so wimpy. But yes, based on a book, Chuck Palahniuk Did you read Fight Club?
I did.
I did too. Now
I read a couple of his books, actually. A couple of his books, they're all great. I like them all.
They're very unique in that they take such a warped direction in a lot of them. And, with Fight Club, I read the book after I watched the movie. So, I didn't have that, well, I don't know, how are you going to make this a movie? I was, spoiled by the movie for the book. But definitely an interesting author, worth taking your time to check out. He's got lots of good titles to go read. What did you think of the book? From your recollection.
Oh, the one thing I can say about both the movie and the book is it's almost prophesizing today. And this is just my view. You look at the stagnation of where we are, and I'm not going to get into race, but I mean just as lower class, lower middle class. We talk about economic status. Leave everything else out: political affiliation, everything else, gender, race. We're all stagnant. We're all at the bottom rim. And basically that's the premise of the book, right? We are made to serve. And we are stuck. And this is the way that everything's framed. And we have no way to put out our aggression. We have no way to vocalize who we are or that we're displeased with society nowadays. Let's face it. It doesn't matter who we vote for. It's a fix. And I don't mean the most recent election. I mean all of them. There's two candidates. They're both the same party. It doesn't matter. Again, this is a non-political show. I don't get into politics. Mm-hmm. So nothing really ever changes except that we as the lower class constantly are losing our money, whether it's inflation or higher bills or, hey, just keep your head up and try to survive a little bit longer in the rat race. And let's face it, that's where kind of this whole frustration comes out with these males are going in these fight clubs. Let's face it, they're going in, they're fighting each other for sport because they're bored. They have no other way to, in society's way to an approved way of putting out their aggression, except for in these underground clubs, which are springing up all over the place. And what's the end game at this? Is to go ahead and, hey, we're going to have one big night where we take back society and let everybody know that we're still in charge.
It's a very interesting premise. Do you think David Fincher conveyed that in the film?
For sure. Again, like you, I think I was reading somewhere before tonight's podcast that only 5,000 copies of the book sold before they greenlit the movie. So it wasn't like a very popular movie. It just happened to fall into Fox's hands, which is interesting because they blew up the Fox building in the movie. But you look at that and you sit here and say, okay, well, Fox got a hold of this movie and they decided to make it. And Fincher's going to go ahead and he's going to put this thing out. You notice that Durden's not in a lot of the scenes where he's talking to more than one person or he's looking over his shoulder. And it's very well done. I can't say anything. I love this movie. Again, the book is better. Books usually are. Maybe I answered the question.
No, you did, and I think it's interesting. When you talk about the premise of it, and you look at the themes of, man as hunter, going to the basest, version of man, hunter, right? Hunter. And now what this is showing you is, everything is media controlled. You're watching TV, you're seeing a commercial for an IKEA bookshelf or a desk or a coffee table. And that stuff starts to define who you are. And man has no purpose. You don't need to hunt. Media is telling me everything I need. And I need a this pair of pants or this type of shoes or this or that. And, I think it's conveyed very well in the film, where you have Edward Norton as the narrator, just is that person. He's watching infomercials, he's watching TV, he's reading through magazines, he's ordering furniture. He's defined by everything that he owns. Yeah. And it's so well done that when he sprouts Tyler Durden out of his consciousness, and there he is what he wants to be, or what he feels like he should be, right? Tyler doesn't care. Tyler says what he wants. He speaks the truth. Whereas Edward Norton is, the narrator. He's not, he's put my stuff on. Oh, I lost my stuff. My apartment blew up. It's terrible. Well, the insurance will cover it. But it's really, really well done in the film to drive that home. And you see, like you said, these men don't have a purpose. They go through life. They go get a job. All right. Go ahead.
Now, you look at like today, men have, in the 18 to 34-year-old bracket, they've withdrawn from society at this point. They're not getting married. They're not having kids. Mm-hmm. They said, screw it. I'm done. I'm going to live in my parents' basement. Only instead of revolting at this point, they're playing video games.
Yes. Yeah.
They might as well, they're saying, Matrix, take me. That's right. Basically what they've done.
Yeah.
So, and if you had told me when we saw the movie back in college and, we read the book and everything else, this is the way it was going to be 15 years from now, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, but, and it's almost prophetic at that point how Chuck Palahniuk kind of figured this all out beforehand. I hate to say it's the plight of, again, it's a socio-economic way we are. What's the advantage in having kids? You can get divorced, and next thing you know, half your paycheck's gone.
Right.
Well, why would I accept that? So I'm going to withdraw. I'm just going to say screw it. And then, here I am on social media. You were just mentioning, the media's going to tell me everything I need to know. I got videos of big-breasted women showing up on my video feed all day long. Not because I'm looking for them, but, it's amazing because I type in something in one time, and that's all that pops up now. Mm-hmm. Yep. I might stare at it 5 or 6 times, but, look.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm ingrained,
And it's very interesting, because you have, what do? They come up with this, I want you to hit me as hard as you can. And that spawns the Fight Club. And now you have these.
I disagree with you on that. I disagree.
Okay.
And the reason I disagree is because there's a segment of the film where before Tyler Durden, it's almost like a flash at that point. He's
right.
in the rearview mirror going to the airport.
Yep.
And Edward Norton's character, I think his name is Jack, but he's just referred to as the narrator.
Right.
He's going to all these self-help groups because he's trying to find something to hold on to.
Right.
And what's he find to hold on to? A cancer survivor group where Meatloaf's holding on to him.
Right. Right.
And that's where he meets Marla at this cancer meeting over here, and he's going over to this one for smokers, and he's not even, you got a woman over there begging to have sex, and it's sad, but he's almost crying out for help at that point.
Right.
For a good night's sleep. He can't sleep at, like you say, he's flipping through the IKEA pages.
Right.
Because he's so bored with himself.
Right.
And look, imagine being in a job where you have no promotion potential.
Yeah.
And you have to sit there for another 10 years. And you're hating, you're loathing every day going to work. And it's like, I just can't do this anymore. What's the alternative? What's the result? Look, to go out of your house at 1 o'clock in the morning, go fight somebody and go feel more alive than you ever have.
Right. And part of that is, the fear, right? Like the fear of that, right? Like, listless, you don't have the fear anymore. You're afraid at first. I don't want to hit you. That, right, becomes, okay, Fight Club is where I can face my fears and I can overcome my fears. And now I can sleep at night and I don't have to worry about that stuff. And it's very interesting. Like when you start thinking about it in that sense. And for this movie, you know, for that age group that you cited, the 1834, this movie, we were in our 20s when this came out. And, you know, I don't know how you felt about it the first time you saw the film and what you walked away with. You know, you're almost like you can relate to these, to the ideas of Tyler Durden in a way. And I thought, like, that was my initial, like, I said, wow, you know, like, he's on to something, you know, but they never, like, you know, as chaotic as it gets throughout the film, and it gradually gets bigger and bigger, you know, we're starting fights with, you know, a stranger and you're going to lose. Then it becomes Project Mayhem and we're blowing up buildings and destroying corporate artwork to the point where we're wiping out the credit card companies. You know, it's an interesting concept.
So, I have the question to ask you, and this is the question. What is your favorite scene from this movie?
Okay. I think I'm going to go with, I mean, I don't know. I like one particular scene. I like the scenes where they do the fights, you know, and this, maybe the one scene I keep going back to is the scene where Lou, the tavern owner, comes down the steps and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And, you know, Tyler's like, "Oh, you know, this is our meeting and Lou gave us permission." You know the scene I'm talking about?
Yes.
Where, okay. So what I always find interesting about this scene is, you know, just the way that Tyler is in control of that entire scene. The second that guy comes down there, even though that guy is the owner and he's projecting like he's the big shot or a mob guy or whatever.
The Danny Aiello character.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Okay.
But Tyler's in control. He gets him to do everything he wants him to do. You know, it's a club. It's no money. It's free to join. You should join. And he gets the person to beat him and beat him and beat him. And you see in the one spot in this scene where he's taking the beating and Edward Norton's character is off to the back, leaning on a column, and he's getting concerned and he takes a step forward and you know, Tyler Durden reaches his hand up like, you know, stop. And that's like, you know, that the Edward Norton part was going to take over at that point. And he's like, nope, I got it. This is what I want. And it plays out in that fashion. And everybody there watching it is like, wow, okay. And then that's when he starts giving them assignment, start a fight, but I want you to start a fight with a stranger and I want you to lose. And you're kind of really starting to see like this guy is really like a cult leader, you know, he's like onto this. He's onto something. It's an interesting scene when you go back and watch it and you kind of pick up the little things like that. And I always thought like where he's reaching out and like telling him no, he's like, don't switch gears and take over. I got this, you know. But you don't realize that the significance of that till you get to the twist in the end. And when you rewatch it is when you pick up on something like that. What about you?
So I have a few. And probably the scene that, for me, was most copied. And again, none of these scenes are the fight. Like, for you said, oh, it's the fighting scenes. I like the fighting scenes and how intricate it gets and why you have to lose the first fight and how he draws these guys in. Mine aren't that intricate. The first would be the scene that was copied in the movie American Beauty. You know what scene I'm talking about? Where he walks into his boss's office and starts...
Oh, yeah, yes. That is...
In
yes.
American Beauty, the Kevin Spacey character walks in there and says, he's got to use his own rules, society's own rules, to say, I was sexually harassed by you.
Yes.
And I dare you to find out that... And basically it's the same thing. And then he's on the ground, he's, oh, no, please, you know...
Yes.
It's the same thing almost. It's just
a
little bit different. The other scene where, you know, of course, Brad Pitt's pissing in the soup and everybody's drinking the soup. Because you go to McDonald's, you can picture the kids back there Oh, okay, you want that quarter pounder with cheese? Oh, not, let me give you the secret sauce, motherfucker. You know, because we've all, you know,
Right.
experienced.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they have
Yeah.
at some point. Everybody who's eaten at McDonald's or any of these fast food restaurants has probably had their food messed with at least once,
Mm-hmm.
or dropped on the ground for the 5 second rule, or you know, whatever it may be. Um, or where they hog tie and tie up the one guy who's like the political guy, and they're telling him, "We know where you live. We know where you sleep. You know, basically, we
Mm-hmm.
know where you work. We're the guys driving the cars to come pick you up and to drive. You know, you better start listening." Those are the scenes to me of the society's upheaval. You know, the hey, we're not taking this anymore. This is where Project Mayhem's really starting to start gaining some steam. Uh, I have another question for you.
Yes.
Maybe it's not even a question. Is the lead female in this movie Helen Bonham Carter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is she hot?
Uh,
If you have to think about it, I already know the
well,
answer.
see, I don't know. Like, she's not. I don't think she's meant to be, because she's living with nothing. She has nothing. The house they live in on Paper Street is just, they're squatters, you know, like, so I don't
But I
think
think
she's,
that makes it better for them. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't think she's intended to be, you know. I think she's supposed to be dirty. She's supposed to be a little grimy, clothes lived in. They're not even her clothes. She's stealing them from, you know, the laundromat. Sometimes she's selling them. You know, it's. I don't think she's meant to be like what you would picture as, like, you know,
a leading lady.
yeah, yeah. I think she's supposed to be a little bit grimy.
So I'm gonna say this. I think she's extremely, extremely talented.
Mm-hmm.
She's in one of my favorite movies.
Frankenstein.
No, Todd Sweeney. Todd
Oh,
Sweeney.
it's Sweeney Todd. Yeah, yeah.
Sweeney Todd. My
Yeah.
bad. Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
Love that movie.
Yes.
Her and Johnny Depp. I know she was married to Johnny Depp, I think, or with Johnny Depp for a little bit. But I just don't find the sex appeal with her. I think in the movie she does a great job. She's awesome in the movie. Because really she's the one who's projecting that. Hey, how can you treat me like this one
Yeah.
day, and then the next it's kind of like
You're nuts. Yeah. Yeah.
But she's doing the same thing to him. She's playing the game too. It's like, oh, okay, it's almost like a real relationship in that way. Of, hey, I'm good. Hey, you know, you can't be too clingy the first little bit, because otherwise you come off too clingy, and it's like, oh, it's a turn off. We don't want that in a relationship. You know, you can't. What do they call it? Love bomb somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I stole that term from somebody I was watching on TikTok today. You can't love bomb somebody in the first 6
Trademark.
weeks. Oh, I didn't trademark it. So. Yeah, you understand. But so, you know, and she does that to a T where she's like really push-pull with Edward Norton. And he's not doing the same because he wants to be with her. And unfortunately, it's Tyler Durden who's with her. And it's that whole connection in terms of the plot line that makes it so interesting, because it's that push-pull
Yeah.
that's so genuine in the movie. And it's prevalent in our relationships,
Yeah. Yeah.
in society nowadays.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because Edward Norton even has a line of dialogue in that where he, you know, she's coming in a room and he's going in another room, right? They're never in the room together at one point in the relationship, and he thinks back to his parents being the same thing, doing the same thing, right? So it's interesting you say that, right? But, you know, I do agree with you. She's very good in the role. Great performance, you know, but she's not the traditional, you know, what you would say, striking female lead.
and she's had a great career. I mean, she played the Queen of Hearts, or you know, in Alice in Wonderland, and you know, she's had a great career. She's very talented.
Yeah.
But do I picture her in this movie as a leading? I would never. And I guess, you know, they were looking for Courtney Love at first.
Were they?
And I believe so. And thankfully, they elected not to go with her.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I really can't.
I can't really picture any other actress as Marla. I can't.
She did great.
Yeah.
She was amazing in the movie. I don't think she gets enough credit. Everybody wants to talk about Edward Norton and even Meatloaf.
Yes.
He wore a 90-pound fat suit for this movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually that big.
Yeah. That was. It's a good. It's a strange role, but like you have Meatloaf, who's very recognizable. He has a very unique look, right? And I thought he was good in the movie. I mean, he doesn't blow you away, but he's good. He's good. Robert Paulson.
So, I have a question. I know you've been looking for a side gig. Have you thought about breaking into medical waste dispensaries and stealing their body fat for soap at this point?
The richest, creamiest fat of the land. Interesting. But I'd be curious to see how many people, after the Fight Club boom, when this is out in 99 and the word of mouth and it's like a cult movie, how many people have tried to make their own soap after watching this movie?
So I do a lot of events, a lot of them, craft events, shows, and I can tell you, hands down, there's one word that sells soap. One word. Because the guy who was sitting next to me selling bars of it at Loretta Winery, this guy was doing really well on a 100-degree day, selling bars of soap. You know what that word was?
What's that?
I'm going to throw it to you. 100% vegan.
Interesting.
Now, I had never thought, a bar of soap has to be vegan.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Again.
It's corn-fed.
I don't know, but he was wildly successful that day, that weekend. He
Very
outsold
interesting.
everybody else who was there, selling jewelry and hot sauce and books and everything else. This guy was just blown away, making more money than everybody else who was there as a vendor. And the word he kept saying was vegan.
Interesting. Makes you wonder.
Well, I don't think I have to wonder. I'm just, my books, by the way, they're 100% vegan.
Well, yeah. Listen, the pages are 100% vegan. No animals were harmed in the creation of this story. Oh, my goodness. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We'll be on the lookout for Real Geek Media soap. 100% vegan, by the way, everybody.
Look, I'm just telling you, that's the way he was selling it. And sure enough, I've always wanted to try to make soap after seeing this movie. For me, that struck a chord to me.
I got to be honest, I felt the same way. It's funny.
Chop people up and put them in the basement. That's what we got to do. We got to use the body fat. Don't let it go waste, Hayden.
Think of all the soap.
Coming from realgeekmedia.com. Yeah, 100% vegan body fat soap.
Well, once the merch store's up and running, then there'll be bars of soap.
We'll say it straight from Norway.
Right, there you go.
Nobody will know.
Oh, God.
I met Norway, West Virginia, didn't you?
So let me ask you, the twist.
Okay.
How did you feel about the twist? Did you have any inkling what was coming?
So I can say this: my first time watching the film was not as good as yours. I did not like the movie the first time I saw it. I probably waited about 10 years to see it again, and it was the second and the third and the fourth time that I saw the movie that I sat there and said, "Wow, this is actually a very good movie." Because the first 21, 22, 23 years old, you're watching the movie. I want to see the fights. Oh, you got Brad Pitt with the shirt off? I don't want to see that. I told you look.
Right.
And again, no offense to Helen Bonham Carter. She's not in this movie as that sex appeal role. So the fights weren't all that spectacular. You got people getting beat up. There's blood all over the place. So, okay, but no one's really getting hurt to that extent. It's not like martial arts like Steven Seagal, who stands in one place and kills everybody. Just moving his hands like this. It doesn't work.
Well, Jared Leto's face would like a word.
But going back and watching it the second and the third time and seeing the underline, when they're hitting the golf balls off of and they're drunk. And like I said, the fact that they could live in this mansion, it's the floors in the rain coming in and the basement's flooded. And there's no power and there's no electricity and there's no running water and they're off grid basically.
Mm-hmm.
Before off grid was a popular thing.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with the homeless stuff that's going on in our society, we got a lot of people squatting.
Yep.
We mention it in our news articles almost every other week.
Yep.
And these people are already doing it. All they need to do is go down to the. I mean, if you really want to run a sequel to this, Edward Norton goes down to the township and files a claim saying he wants to take over the house because he's been there for 10 years. And they have to give him the property.
Yeah.
By law.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild.
So, Fight Club 2, the sovereign citizens rule.
Revenge of Project Mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah. They, like, when you rewatch this movie and you see there's little frames of Tyler Durden spliced throughout the early portions of this movie until you meet him. Now, when you meet him, you think he's like, oh, you actually just met him on the plane. But like, you start to really go back and look. He was asleep on the plane, but was he, just kind of in between, waking up and falling back to sleep? And you start to see, like you had mentioned earlier, that like when the conversations happen between him and Tyler, the narrator and Tyler, it's usually just the two of them. They're not out in public. And when one of them is speaking at Fight Club, the other one is in the background.
I didn't see the twist coming, to answer your question.
No,
before.
yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really think it was that great of a twist. Mm-hmm. But looking back on it now, as a writer, as an author, it's one of these things where I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the first chapter. And I'm kind of working on something like this myself, so I can appreciate it now more than 20 years ago. I'm going to tell you something that's going to happen that you won't believe. And at the end of the book, you're going to be like, wow, you told me this was coming for the last 25 chapters, and I didn't believe you. And you've made the unbelievable believable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Chuck Palahniuk, because he starts off with, basically, I put the gun in my mouth.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
Now, in the book, I think he goes to the mental institution
right.
For the dissociative disorder.
Yep.
But,
Yeah, it's definitely, like, if you've only seen it once, it's definitely worth a rewatch where you could pick up on some other things that are subtly done throughout the film. And, I don't know how you feel about David Fincher as a filmmaker. I love David Fincher. I think he was the perfect director for this movie. And, this
Alien
movie...
3, right?
Yes, Alien 3. which I know he disowns and despises, and
everybody else.
It's not a good movie. I know there's a lot of people that are apologists for Alien 3 out there. Sorry, I'm not one. The movie's terrible. I
don't think it's terrible. I think it's okay.
No,
if it wasn't behind those two films,
it
wouldn't be as bad as it's perceived.
I think if they left him alone, and now he must have been in his 20s when he did Alien 3. He was doing commercials. He was a young director, and the studio obviously wanted to have their fingers in it. And I think where he is now, what he's judged as now, is one of the greatest filmmakers of maybe the past 20, 25 years. You got to think that, like, oh, maybe we should have just kind of let this guy go with this.
What other movies has he done, Hayden?
7, Fight
great
Club.
Movie. By the way, great movie, 7.
Yeah. The Game. He's done Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I'm not a fan of that movie. I like the book. The books were
the books
pretty
are
good. I thought the movie was Gone Girl.
Gone Girl.
Okay. Good movie.
He's a. And I don't know if you've seen The Killer, which is his latest one, which is on Netflix.
I've not.
Not my favorite. Some interesting things in there, but not my favorite. But I hold him in very high regard. I love his work. But Alien 3 was his big movie starting point. And he won't even, he hates talking about that film. It's funny. But, I'm a big fan of his work. I love this film. When this thing came out on DVD, I used to watch it religiously. And then, you watch it with the commentary track and, which was the thing back in the day, right? Like you would listen to those if you're interested in the movie or the film or the director. But yeah, I was a big fan of this movie.
So, do you remember what Edward Norton's character does for a living in this movie?
He's an insurance adjuster, or he
That's
works.
right. He's an insurance. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So he calculates he goes to these car wrecks and he looks for things, and it's interesting because in the news that we're going to do in the second half of today's program, Edward Norton's would be apparently out of a job. There's no more insurance adjusters because I'm going to go ahead and spoil this one. AI now has a death calculator.
Oh, good.
Yes, their creators have issued a warning about this accurate tool. What you do is you go in and you put your job, your age, your medical history, your income, believe it or not, it's in there. How many family members you have, past history, and it will come up with your death date. And they're saying it's within 2 years accurate.
No kidding.
Yeah, surprisingly so.
No, wild.
So
do we have access?
No, because they're saying there's a lot of copycat apps out there.
Gotcha.
Right now, so they're advising you not to start Googling this stuff to find out what your death date is, because you'll get hacked. But apparently, Live to Vec, worked by Chat GPT, of course, will foretell when people will bite the dust.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And of course, they have the death calculator with the human skull on there. So
I see it.
You got to be a little foreboding. It can't just be, here's a nice cemetery plot with the family members crying. No. We're going to do the human skull to death. So,
who'd have thought, like, when you think back to early AI was like the magic 8-ball, and you would shake it and it would tell you the answer. And now we have Chat GPT and death calculators.
Look, apparently this is accurate 78% of the time.
That's pretty high.
Oh, look, I'm willing to lay down a third of my gambling record. I can tell you that.
That's pretty high.
Wait till they do it for your dating life.
Oh my God.
Will you be able to? Oh yeah, I'm sure. That's gonna come next.
It's gonna automatically tell you compatibility percentage.
Oh yeah. Well, they already do that when you go to these dating profiles anyway, in terms of how much you've matched up with other people based on the questions and your political views and everything else. So why not?
Interesting. Tyler Durden's going to pop up there too.
I'm just saying, for me, that's one of the things. Again, it's pushing the socioeconomic people out of jobs, and you have all these people sitting around not doing anything and being productive. And what do? They're scrolling social media. They're going into the matrix. They're basically sitting there as a box of rocks, feeling useless for themselves. And again, Chuck Palahniuk in this movie and through his book, they really kind of, this is what you need to fight back.
Do you think during the story where all through when the narrator and Marla are having like maybe there's something there, maybe there's not, and then Tyler gets involved, narrator starts to get a little jealous and a little off-putting towards Marla, and then when Project Mayhem starts to kick up and he's like, maybe I should have kind of paid a little more attention to Marla, he starts to pull away from it. He doesn't want to be a part of Project Mayhem. It's too much. You know what I mean? Like, he starts to recognize that. Do you think that was interesting, like when he started to do that, and he didn't go full bore into Project Mayhem, but he started to, he had an opportunity to pursue Marla, but he just, nah. But then like when the Tyler Durden part of him took over, he did, but like his real self as the narrator, I thought that was kind of like, I mean, you had an opportunity to if you wanted to pursue it, but you know, it took Project Mayhem to come around for him to really kind of get a change of heart there.
So I think this is divided into two answers. Number one, it parallels real life. You meet the girl, and within the first few hours, if you're not trying to assert yourself sexually, she puts you in the friend zone. And you're stuck in the friend zone. So what do? You introduce her to your friend, and because you're not introduced to your... So if you ever read the book by Neil Gaiman, The Game, it's always easier to approach a girl when they're with somebody. And if she's with a friend and she knows this guy, then he's safe. And if he's safe, then the friend is safe. And he may be somebody I'm now sexually interested in. And let's face it, can guys and girls ever really, truly be friends? That's a question for the ages. Without somewhere the thought of being some kind of sexual, I don't know. But getting back to your question of, the Project Mayhem, I almost wonder if it's a reverse thing where Tyler Durden kind of pushed him out as a way to protect him from Project Mayhem because he knew he wasn't going to approve of what was going on. So if you could put him off on Marla and being concerned with Marla, he can run around all these different cities, sparking up all these different fight clubs and getting Project Mayhem grounded and on the floor, ready to go. That's the way I view it. It's like almost like we're going to make sure that Marla's around and she's serving a purpose. It's not just so I have a fuck buddy, but because it's distracting to Edward Norton's character at this point. I can now take that distraction and go around all these different cities and go do what I had to do with Project Mayhem, starting all these different clubs, while you're kind of distracted with Marla, not paying attention to what's really going on underneath. And that's the subconscious level. That's just the way it's a second level thinking. That's just my guess.
It's a well-reasoned argument. Now, this movie was termed fascist by a lot of people after it came out. And I know the studio was concerned, 20th Century Fox was concerned that with the story being kind of, dark and just kind of nihilistic in a way. There is a lot of humor spliced throughout the film where I don't think people will look at this and go, oh, that's a very bleak film. I don't feel that way. There are some ideas in there where, when you get to the Project Mayhem and how they want to change and bring everybody back to the ground level, it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting concept, but I know a lot of the feedback after this film was that it was fascist, which you look at now and you're like, interesting, but I don't fully agree with it. I think it's something that really resonated with a demographic of men, when it came out.
So I have an answer for you. Life is nihilistic. And, I hate to say it like that, but life is also funny. We go to work at these desk jobs for 8 hours, for 40 hours a week, for 365 days a year. And it's those little moments of, okay, at least I'm not stuck in the house today. What am I clinging on to? I'm clinging on to telling jokes about this guy over here or cracking a joke over here, or those moments of interpersonal connection. You look at all the stuff going on out in the community nowadays, what's going on these college campuses. Now, I'm not saying right, wrong, indifferent, but did you hear about what they wanted to do? Some of the funnier stuff. One college frat proposed hiring a mariachi band for 48 hours or a week to go and antagonize the protesters. Now, whether you agree with the protesters or not doesn't make a difference. They're well-funded, whatever. Okay, whatever. But to hire a mariachi band to follow them around for a week, for 24 hours a day, that's funny. Yeah. That's Project Mayhem.
Yes.
My thought was, you want to do Project Mayhem? Go around and take locks and chains and lock up every bathroom within a 2-mile radius. Porta potties, everything. Shut them down, lock them up.
Yep.
Where are people going to the bathroom in it? They wouldn't have handled it.
Yeah.
They would not. If you want to shut down, I'm just saying, but that's Project Mayhem.
Right. Yep.
What the protesters were doing was Project Mayhem. They were using their society's own rules against them. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with the stance. I'm not here to debate that today. Again, this is a non-political show. I'm just giving you what Project Mayhem would be. They did it to a T. They went in, they took over the building, and then they get, oh, what was us?
Right.
What? Okay, but that's what they want. Look, and they were good at doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And did they get what they wanted? Certainly, I think that they did to a point.
Yeah.
They certainly got national attention, and cameras looked at them. I mean, they got more views on their stuff than we have.
Right.
I mean, maybe we need to go to Columbia. I don't know.
We're going to make shields out of plastic trash cans.
Oh, no. Those are provided to us at the U-Haul van. Trust me.
Well, you can get your defensive training like the Spartans in the courtyard.
Another great movie, yeah. So look, your overall opinion of Fight Club.
I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's better on the rewatch because you're picking up, all the things that you weren't looking at the first time around. It's a great movie. It's a better book. Read the book. Check it out if you haven't. I mean, you got great performances by the big three in there. You have Brad Pitt, Ed Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter. Great performances, great direction, lots of eye-catching cuts and things from Fincher. It's a great movie.
I have to agree with you again. This is when this movie first came out, I was still anti-Brad Pitt. That was a thing back in the day.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, let's face it, Thelma and Louise was the pretty boy. We're not gonna.
This helped, I think, change some of his perception because he was very grimy and gross, slick, greasy dirtbag in this movie.
He chipped his front teeth on purpose for this movie.
Yeah.
And then got, it's easy to correct with $17 million that he got from doing this movie.
Sure.
But
you're right. Yeah, he had a stigma attached to him as the pretty boy.
Right, and let's face it, for me, it was Seven that really kind of revolutionized my thought of him as an actor. Because before this, it was A River Runs Through It.
Right.
And,
Meet Joe Black.
Which, again, I mean, I remember being in the theater for Meet Joe Black because I had my girlfriend at the time. And people in the theater were clapping when he stepped off the curb and got run over. You think I'm kidding?
Yeah,
no,
I believe it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that would happen nowadays, though. I really don't.
No.
Because, again, he's now become an American staple. And there are so few actors that do that nowadays.
His career, not to get too long-winded with Brad Pitt's movie career, but if you look at where we perceived him back 25 years ago to where he is now, look at Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And look at that role. He killed his wife, right? He's a war hero. He's a stuntman. He's a likable guy. He's a dangerous guy. But you're not looking at him the same way. He's got scars. He's a little bit off. But he does it so well. He became a very good actor. So now he's like maybe top 3 movie star in the world.
Look, all I have to say about Brad Pitt in that movie, Once Upon a Time, if my wife was nagging me like that on the boat and I had a spear gun, she might not make it off that boat either. That's a fair assessment. It's a fair assessment.
Oh, man.
But, so look, it's business looking for an affordable way to gain and attract new clients. Real Geek Media and Entertainment is now offering sponsorships for their podcast and website. You too can be part of Project Mayhem by being an advertiser on this show. Come to the underground. Look, it's in the basement.
It's a good pitch.
What's that? Your business can't afford a sponsorship or a fight? No problem. Consider running an advertisement during one of our podcast shows. Advertising starts as low as just $50. Just $50. That is a safer bet than you going to McDonald's and making your home safe nowadays. Visit realgeekmedia.com. Click on the links for sponsor us, advertise with us, or donate here to get started. Again, that's www.reelgeek media media.com. Second, we have from author Christopher Michael Blake comes his book Seance, book one of the Witches of Summer's End series. When Nancy moves to her ancestral home in Louisiana, she gets more than she expects. She makes new friends at school. She has trouble avoiding school bullies. And when she finds out she's descended from a popular long line of witches, it's not long before she finds a magic spell book catapulting her and her friends to the popular kids in school. However, it comes with a price. When the spell book is stolen and the students at Talbot High are threatened, it's up to Nancy and her friends to save the day. Can Nancy really find time to go to the homecoming dance with the star quarterback of the Talbot High Witches and find time to save the school while keeping her secret as a witch safe from everybody else? You gotta read the book to find out, Hayden.
Couldn't have said it better. Check out these books. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Now, Hayden, you're going to have to come over here and give me a hug, and we're going to try it out.
As long as you got to put on like the gray T-shirt so I can make sure I can see my face.
As long as I can breastfeed you, I'm okay with it.
You know, it's funny, before we switch over for the news, you said that, and I instantly went to Justin Long and Barbarian. Remember that?
You know, that was still one of the... say what you want, because Hollywood has a way of just... I mean, whether it's the Walrus movie with him, or... It's basically, if we could do something terrible to somebody, let's make sure we do it to Justin Long.
Yeah, he's definitely on somebody's list.
But in that movie, he's totally the despicable guy.
Mm-hmm.
And not to get too far into it, maybe we'll review the movie one day,
Yeah.
or maybe we won't. He's a rapist. And at first it's like, I didn't do this. And it's like, well, maybe we had sex. And then it's, I can't believe we had sex and that you're blaming me for this. And then it's like, well, I know you passed out, but you were there and I was there. And it's like, I'm really sorry you did this. You didn't have to file charges on me. Then the girl's coming back and saving him after being breastfed.
Yeah.
Being to throwing her off the tower to try to save himself. I mean, this guy's just totally, despicable.
Yes. Yes.
So, but it's great character development because he doesn't change and he stays true to himself. And it's like, almost, how can you one up wanting this guy to die?
Yes.
And
yes.
Yes.
It's an interesting movie. We will definitely, I think, talk about that one at some point.
We got a long list to go. So,
but stick with us. We'll be back shortly with your box office projections, news stories,